What's up, guys? We're in a new setting today and I want to show you exactly where we're at. So this is my basement, and this is like a little back area that my dad uses for storage and also as a workshop. So shout out to Dad, thanks. I'm using this for today's video. But anyways, I gotta do some maintenance on my fire knives because I have a couple shows coming up and it's been quite some time since I first got my fire knives and they need to be re-wicked. So right now we've got the work table and then a bunch of stuff. This is the good stuff, prize jewels. So I have a bunch of fire knives. This fire knife is one of them that I gotta work on. You can tell that this thing is super worn out, and I got this one in 2014, so about 2 years now, and it is completely worn out. Like, you can see the Kevlar disintegrating. There's actually some soundboard inside of there as well. This is a sleeve, a hybrid type of fire knife. Essentially, I just need to put on a new set of Kevlar onto this knife, same with the butt end. In addition to that hybrid knife, I also have some soundboard fire knives, which look like this. So if you're unfamiliar with the difference in material of wick for fire knives, you have two main types. First one is soundboard, which looks like this. It's pretty much like compressed wood, and they use it for ceiling and wall ventilation and padding. So this is a donut. This is what we call a donut. And again, soundboard. It's very, very light, and it's a very specific texture and feeling versus like hardwood or something like that. That's the first type of wick, and the reason why fire knife dancers use that is because it absorbs fuel very, very well. So it has a longer lasting burn, but it actually over time burns the wick, so you have to replace them frequently. And then the second main wick that is commonly used is Kevlar. So I have this wrap of fresh Kevlar, and then this is the old knife. And Kevlar is nice because it is longer lasting, meaning that there's less maintenance to it, but it goes out faster. So you have to refuel and you have to reset every time you burn. So, and over time it does degrade, so you do need to replace it, which is why we're here today. So yeah, we're just gonna figure this out today. So your standard set of tools that you would use for a fire knife are wire clippers. We use these to take off the actual wires on the knife. I'm gonna show you kind of what it looks like on the inside. Yeah, so this is what the old Kevlar looks like. Now, this specific fire knife that I got is actually a hybrid knife because it uses both soundboard and Kevlar. Chris Major is the guy that I bought it from in Colorado. He crafted a Kevlar sleeve so that you can slip soundboard into it, and that way, as you're fueling the fire knife, the soundboard is absorbing all the fuel while the Kevlar is protecting the soundboard so that it has a longer lasting burn and you don't actually burn the soundboard on the inside. So it's kind of like a pretty cool mod. I don't know how he was able to sew it together. Eventually I'll figure that out, but I'm just gonna replace it with a regular Kevlar. There are instances where you'll perform long enough and the inside of the Kevlar and the soundboard start to burn. So that's why I have to replace it, and that's why it's hollow too. I don't know if you can see that. Normally it's pretty inflated, but then because the Kevlar was pierced and the soundboard inside burned, the sleeve is flat. So I basically just got to get rid of those because they're super worn out. So pretty much just gonna take off this one side, and we're also gonna take out the donut side. So you have your long end and then your short end of the fire knife right here. Get that off. I don't think I've ever actually taken this side off before. I've replaced the sleeve a couple of times, but I haven't actually done the butt end side. Look at this. So this is completely worn out on the outside, but you can also see that the Kevlar on the inside is pretty unaffected. So it really is just the outside, but I've been meaning to re-wick this for a while. So this is just fairly old and I want to actually get rid of it. So I want to also use this kind of as a way to measure how long I would actually need to cut out. This bad boy was gifted to me by Phil Zuzak, and Phil is the owner of the Tiki Terrace, which is a tiki bar that I perform at, and it's a very, very fun place. But he used to dance with his brother back in the early 2000s, and he and my first teacher, David, they're the second gen of fire knife dancers in Chicagoland, so it's kind of cool to just like keep up with him. And he hasn't performed in a long time, so he was just like, it was getting old in his garage and he just wanted to get rid of it, so he gave it to me. So shout out to him, because that is a pretty sweet deal. And what you want to notice here is that there are 2 holes, and that's where the wire goes through. Okay, that's where the wire gets tied on both sides. That's what holds and fastens the Kevlar together onto this end of the fire knife. Essentially what I need to do is just make this nice and tight. Okay, so pretty much got it wrapped on the butt end. And what I'm noticing now is that it's actually a little bit shorter compared to the original Kevlar, which is a little bit wider. Not that big of a deal, we'll work with it, but essentially you just want it rolled up nice and secure so that it's not gonna get off. What I gotta do next is wire this in. All right, so the wire that we also typically use, or at least was recommended to me to use for my fire knives, is 16 gauge dark annealed. This thickness really helps, and this is also cheaper too, so that it keeps it in place even after it burns. Because every time you burn your fire knife, whether it's with boards or Kevlar, the material degrades and shrinks. So you want to make sure that even after it shrinks a little bit, it's still in place and that it still won't get too loose, or else that's a really bad thing and it can fly off while you're spinning. So definitely don't want that. Right now I don't know how much length I need, so I'm just going to give it a little bit extra. So it's also interesting, there was this piece that was laid on top of the main wrap of the Kevlar, and I think what happened, what Chris did, was he weaved it together so that this was the seam that closed just like that. This is how it was. He sewed it together so that it wouldn't come off. I think he sewed it with Kevlar yarn, which I could get separately, but I don't have that right now, so we're gonna have to improvise a bit. I want to try to thread the wire itself directly into these 2 layers of Kevlar so that they're still together, and that way when I thread it through everything, this open end doesn't come loose. So let's try that. So there's a little rinky dinky, but it makes sense. Essentially what I did was I weaved it from the top layer to the bottom layer so that I can weave the rest of the wire through and then tie it. Okay. Weaving that wire through, and voila. Okay. Man, this low-key looks a little janky, but it works and it gets the job done, and this is nice and tight. So I know it moves a little bit, but once I clip the wires and then tighten it up, it shouldn't move at all. And then I'll cut these loose threads off. All right, that is completely fastened on. Feels super tight, secured, and this is threaded through so that this top layer is directly fastened to the remaining layer. Nice. Okay, so you have this left end fastened together. Other end is empty, of course, so we got to do that next, but this one should be a little bit easier. Okay, let's do the long end of the fire knife. All right, so for this side, what I have to do is double layered because the single layer of Kevlar is very, very thin. So I'm probably gonna end up maybe like triple folding it 3 or 4 times. Like a good amount of Kevlar will keep that going nice and strong. So honestly, 4 looks pretty solid. Maybe in 5. I think 5 looks pretty solid too. So basically just enough to make it nice and thick on both ends. 6 looks good just like that. Yep. All right. So we're done with this bad boy. Now, you basically just have to fasten these onto the fire knife. All right, there we go. Now we have our fire knife that is fully wrapped. This room is super tiny, so I'm not gonna spin in here, but essentially all we did was really just re-wick the butt end and the top end so that they're nice and secure, and this is a fully Kevlar fire knife. All right, so it's no longer the hybrid where you have the board in the middle. This was my first time wrapping Kevlar. I think it turned out pretty decent. All I care about is that it's nice and tight onto the fire knife and that it looks good and, you know, overall pretty solid. So yeah, now that we have this done, let's go test this bad boy out. All right, so without realizing it, I actually ended up not getting any audio because of a very, very annoying error on my mic. So basically I just tested out the newly wicked fire knife, and I gotta say overall it went pretty well. I did immediately realize that it was very top heavy, and with your fire knife typically you do want it to be top heavy and have the balancing point a little bit more to the head or the long end side of the fire knife. But with this particular adjustment, I did realize that it was a little bit too heavy on the head side. So what that means is I need to either add more Kevlar to the butt end or the shorter end of the fire knife, or remove some of the Kevlar from the long end. I may just remove some Kevlar from the long end side because it was starting to get pretty heavy, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, but I have other fire knives that are heavier, and with this particular knife, I want it to be on the lighter side so I could focus more on speed with this one, whereas the other ones are much bigger and I can kind of expect to have a more heavy handled fire knife. You don't want all of your fire knives to be the same weight. You kind of want to have a dynamic range of fire knives to which you can choose from. Definitely gonna adjust those, but overall really like the improvement with this and that it's fully Kevlar and there is gonna be minimal maintenance to it. So definitely looking forward to that compared to the hybrid knife I had before. So I hope you enjoyed that video, and I hope you got to see a little bit more of what it's like to prepare fire knives. I definitely want to do more of these in the future and kind of break down step by step on actually how to maintenance them. And at the same time, I'm learning still on my own. So glad you guys could see that process and join me on this one. And I appreciate you watching. So like always, be what remains, and I will see you in the next video. Peace.